Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we're tackling what might be the single most challenging assignment we've ever faced.
I think that's fair to say.
We're decoding the book of Revelation. And for most people, even if you've read it, this book is just a source of, confusion and fear.
And a lot of cinematic drama.
Exactly. It's the ultimate symbol of catastrophe. We even use the word apocalyptic to describe just chaos, fire, destruction.
And that modern association, that very fearful feeling, is precisely what we need to get past.
Okay.
Our mission in this deep dive, which is based on a really intensive analysis of the text, is to cut through all that smoke and mirrors of common perception.
And find what's really there.
Find the book's absolute purpose. This isn't a roadmap to tragedy. It's a proclamation of the triumphant person and plan of Christ. It's meant to provide profound consolation and clarity to believers.
Whether they lived back then under Roman rule or are living today. The sources we looked at, they immediately emphasized that this book is defined by this intense duality.
Yeah.
It's like an electrical charge of paradoxes.
It really is.
It speaks of the gentle lamb who is slain, but then in the same breath, it talks about the terrifying concept of the wrath of the Lamb.
You see that contrast everywhere. It holds both the promise of, the glorious river of water of life flowing freely.
In the lake of fire.
And the reality of the decisive, terrifying lake of fire. So yes, it's the culmination of judgment, but it is simultaneously the ultimate text of encouragement.
So everything that started in Genesis
Is wrapped up here. Everything. The creation, the fall, the conflict, the promise of redemption, it's all consummated, it's finalized in Apocalypse.
with Jesus as the Alpha and the Omega.
The initiator and the finisher. The absolute guarantee that history is a story. He is actively writing and will conclude gloriously.
Okay, let's unpack that core issue of misunderstanding first. We treat this book like a sealed scroll, don't we? Like it's some mystical thing that's unknowable.
We do. It's dense, it's mysterious, and we think we can't really get it until the very end. But the title itself screams the opposite message.
Right.
There's an irony built right into the name. The Greek word is apocalypses.
Which is a compound word.
It is, yeah. It's made up of apo, which means something like from within out, and then calypsis.
Which is a covering or a veil.
A covering, a veil, exactly.
But the literal meaning is to take the veil away.
To take away the veil. It's an unveiling, a revealing of what was hidden. God is actively saying, I am pulling back the curtain on my plan and I am showing it to my church. It is an open book.
Designed to be understood.
And applied. The original audience needed that clarity, not more confusion.
And understanding that initial audience it's absolute vital.
Okay.
Who was this unveiling for and why did they need it so desperately?
We really have to place ourselves in the first century. The book was written specifically to believers who were going through intense persecution. The Greek word used is martyrio.
Witnessing unto death, martyrdom.
Actual martyrdom, yes. Under these cruel, megalomaniacal Roman emperors like Nero and Domitian and later Diocletian. Imagine living in a world where just pledging your allegiance to Christ could get you publicly executed.
Where the state itself claims to be a god.
Exactly. And that context, it just flips the meaning entirely. It's not meant to scare the world. It's meant to strengthen the church.
Because when the world is telling you that Caesar is sovereign,
and your movement is about to be extinguished, this book arrives and it reminds you that Christ is the true sovereign, that your victory is assured.
but it's also for us.
Absolutely. Here's the key universal application. While it was written for them, it was also written for all believers across the entire dispensation, from Christ's first coming to his second. It sets the stage for the entire history of the church age.
Which brings us to the symbolism of the 7 churches of Asia Minor. Why those specific 7?
Well, the number 7 is really the organizational key to this whole book. It appears 54 times.
And it signifies completeness.
Yeah.
Totality.
Completeness, spiritual perfection, totality.
Yes.
And so while the messages were delivered to 7 literal historical congregations
With their own real problems.
with their own specific issues, some good, some bad, they function as representative case studies. They encapsulate the spiritual state, the challenges, the encouragement needed for the entire church in all times and all places.
So if you belong to Christ, your spiritual profile is somewhere in those 7 letters.
Somewhere. Whether you are Epheso or Smyrna, you're represented there.
Okay, so this is where the narrative shifts. We go from the general context to the messenger himself, the Apostle John. And when he received this vision, I mean, he was not in a comfortable place. He was in exile.
Not at all. He was banished to Patmos. Our sources describe it as just a desolate 32 square kilometer volcanic rock.
A Roman political prison, a penal colony.
Yes. The intention of Rome was comprehensive. Isolate him, silence his voice, strip him of everything, and just render him spiritually impotent.
But his captivity became the very mechanism for the revelation.
It's an incredible transformation in the narrative. Rome banishes him to the valley, but John says he was immediately in the spirit.
And entered the throne room of the universe.
Exactly. His physical isolation became the door of heaven. The ultimate irony is that by trying to silence him, Rome inadvertently guaranteed the writing of the most powerful book of the New Testament.
They couldn't restrict the divine revelation.
They couldn't. And John, speaking to us, he humbly calls himself our brother and companion in the tribulation, in the kingdom, and in the perseverance in Jesus. He links his suffering directly to ours.
And that vision of Christ he saw, that must have been the ultimate comfort for people being killed by the empire. What did Rome claim about its emperor, and how did Christ's profile, his 3 titles, just completely nullify those claims?
This is so critical. The Roman imperial cult promoted the emperor, who was Domitian at the time, as Dominus et Deus.
Lord and God.
Lord and God. He claimed ultimate power, ultimate life, ultimate truth. But John introduces Jesus with 3 titles that challenge the emperor head on.
Okay, let's break those down.
First, he is the faithful witness. This challenges the emperor's claim to ultimate truth. Jesus is the ultimate prophet. He never failed to testify about the Father, even to the point of death. His testimony is absolute.
And second, he is the firstborn of the dead. This one seems to go right at the emperor's power over life and death.
It does, precisely. This defines his role as the priest. By resurrecting in glory, he conquered the last enemy, which is death.
And if you're standing before a Roman official facing death, that title means everything.
Everything. The bride of the Lamb, the church. She doesn't face death ahead of her as some final foe. She faces death behind her because Christ already went through it and came out victorious. He took the worst of it.
And the third title just dismantles the emperor's political authority.
Completely. He is the sovereign of the kings of the earth, the king. He is above Rome, above Caesar, above every global power, every military force, every political leader.
All of them.
Every single one, past, present, and future, will eventually bow before him. This establishes that grand climax of history. Jesus is the Alpha and the Omega. He is in total control.
That sets the cosmic stage. And then we move, in chapters 2 and 3, from that immense, glorious scope back to the intimate, local reality of the church.
Yes, Christ is now seen walking among the 7 lampstands, the churches, in what the sources call an investigative action.
An inspection.
An up-close inspection. It's a moment of profound spiritual transparency. He's not just observing what they do, their outward performance. He's scrutinizing the condition of their heart, the why behind their actions.
And that judgment, that inspection, it begins at the house of God.
Always. And it reveals 2 wildly contrasting states, even among churches that were dealing with intense pressure from the world.
Let's start with Ephesus. On paper, they look like the most impressive church on the list.
Their resume was incredible. They were fiercely orthodox. They never tolerated false doctrine. They actively fought heresy. Their work ethic was relentless. The Greek word for their labor is kopos.
Which means more than just work.
Oh, yeah. It means sweat-inducing, back-breaking, exhausting work. And they hated the Nicolaitans, who promoted this liberal, immoral Christianity. They were the theological watchdogs of their age.
Okay, wait. They were orthodox, they worked until they sweated, and they hated heresy. If that isn't dedication, what is this first love they supposedly abandoned? Is this just about emotion?
That's the critical insight. Their performance was impeccable, their doctrine was solid, but Christ spotted a fatal flaw. They had abandoned their foundational devotion.
They were theologically perfect, but relationally bankrupt.
That's a great way to put it. Think of a long married couple. The wife still fulfills all her duties, cooking, cleaning, fidelity, but all the deep, intimate devotion, the affection, the joy in his presence. It's gone. The relationship has become a transactional duty.
So orthodoxy and intense work have become substitutes for relationship.
Exactly. And the powerful warning here is that God is infinitely more interested in who we are loving than what we are doing for him. That intense labor, that kopos, was now being done out of habit, not passion. And the consequence was chilling. If they did not repent, the lampstand would be removed.
The church would just cease to exist as a light.
It would be gone.
Wow. Now let's contrast that spiritual dryness with Smyrna, the second case study. Their circumstances were utterly different, but their spiritual health was robust.
Even the name Smyrna is evocative. It means myrrh, which is a bitter herb used in embalming. It perfectly symbolizes their bitter circumstances.
They faced intense tribulation,
Intense tribulation, which means crushing force. They were impoverished, many were slaves, and those who weren't often had their goods seized.
and they faced horrible defamation. The sources mention their slanderers, specific local Jewish groups who allied with Rome as the synagogue of Satan. You have to be careful with that term. What does it mean in this context?
Right, it has to be understood purely in that historical context of persecution. The source material is clear that this phrase refers specifically to those people who are actively slandering Christians to the Roman authorities.
Accusing them of things like atheism, cannibalism.
All of it. And these accusations often led directly to imprisonment and death. So their actions, collaborating with the state to persecute the church, identified them as tools of spiritual darkness regardless of their religious identity.
So despite all that pressure, being materially bankrupt and hated, Christ calls them something entirely different.
Here is the magnificent paradox. They were poor in the eyes of men, but rich in the eyes of Christ.
Because the world evaluates you by what you have.
Your security, your wealth, your status. But Jesus evaluates you by who you are, your character, your endurance, your faithfulness. They were materially poor, but spiritually rich.
And their response is personified by one famous individual, isn't it?
It is. The church was called to be faithful unto death, and the Bishop of Smyrna, Polycarpo, lived this out. The story is so vivid. After 86 years of serving Christ, he's threatened with being burned alive unless he would just say, "Caesar is Lord."
And he refused.
He refused. His steadfastness, prioritizing Christ's sovereignty over his own survival, it just underscores the assurance given to Smyrna. Christ, who is dead and lived again, is their remedy. Their suffering was finite, allowed by God for refining, not for destruction. And the ultimate promise was the crown of life and safety from the second death.
This narrative takes us back to the cosmic level again. Chapter 4 shifts dramatically to the control tower of the universe, the throne of God.
And for John in exile, this image is the single most important message for a persecuted church. No matter what chaos you see on earth, God is absolutely enthroned managing events.
The throne is the epicenter of all reality.
It's a place of absolute honor, authority, and judgment. And what's fascinating is the visual detail. Surrounding the throne is a rainbow, which is, of course, the ancient symbol of God's grace and mercy.
And the timing of its appearance is profound.
It is. That rainbow appears before the lightning and the thunder, which symbolize judgment. It's a visual assurance that for his people, grace precedes judgment. The covenant promise is always in view.
But then comes that moment in chapter 5, the crisis of impotence, where John just weeps because no one is worthy to open the seven-sealed scroll. Why such intense tears? What was the crisis?
He wasn't just sad, he understood the catastrophe. If no one could open that scroll, then history had no meaning, no direction, no hope.
It's the title deed to the universe.
It is. If it stays sealed, creation just falls into endless chaos. John's weeping highlights that history is utterly dependent on a worthy interpreter and guide.
His tears stop because a solution is found in Christ. But the way Christ is introduced is the central paradox of the entire book.
This is the genius of the revelation. The solution is introduced with two titles that seem to completely clash. He is the Lion of the tribe of Judah, symbolizing royal power, conquest, all of it. But when John turns to look at this powerful lion, he doesn't see a ferocious beast. He sees the lamb that was slain, standing as if he had been sacrificed.
So the one worthy to conquer history must first be the one willing to suffer for it.
Exactly. The conquering hero must first appear as the sacrifice. And this paradox assures the persecuted church that true power is found not through imperial violence, but through obedient sacrifice. The Lamb is worthy because he possesses all the divine attributes needed to guide history. He is omniscient, omnipotent, and omnipresent. He is the only one fit to hold the future.
And that ultimate victory brings us to the final state for the faithful, the New Jerusalem. It's the ultimate reversal of the persecution they endured.
It is the eternal reality, the destiny of the faithful. The New Jerusalem descends from heaven, described as a beautiful, adorned bride. And it's spectacular because it reflects the Shekinah glory of God.
What does that mean for the listener, the Shekinah glory?
It refers to the tangible, visible dwelling presence of God. The entire city is illuminated by God himself. There's no need for a sun or even a temple. It's a place where the former things have passed away.
Every consequence of sin, every struggle is over.
All of it. No more tears, no more pain, no more suffering, no more death. The promise to the victorious, to those who persevered like Policarpo, is that they move from the prison of Patmos to being made a pillar in the eternal temple. They will reign with him forever and ever.
This has been an incredibly clarifying deep dive. We've really moved beyond Revelation as just chaos and tragedy. It is fundamentally a story of the secured victory of a sovereign Christ who sees the struggles of his church.
Meticulously.
He knows the apathy of Ephesus, he knows the financial ruin of Smyrna, and he provides the remedy and the assurance for every generation.
To conclude, let's just reflect one last time on that control tower, specifically Revelation chapter 8. It describes a profound moment. There's silence in heaven for about half an hour, specifically so that the prayers of the saints could be gathered and mixed with incense. This silence, this pause in the grand cosmic drama, it comes right before divine judgments are poured out on the world.
Think about that connection. It implies that history's most catastrophic, world-shaking events, the very things we call apocalyptic, are sometimes a direct response to the prayers of the faithful.
So the provocative question for you to consider is this. If the prayers of the saints are that instrumental in shaping history, what world-changing event, what divine response is waiting for the sound of your voice to reach the throne?
We'll leave you with the Church's fervent, hopeful prayer and promise. It's the final word of the book, bringing us full circle. Surely I come quickly. Amen. Come, Lord Jesus.